everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about 6 different award sites that I can't even believe are real. And this is going to be an insane episode because now we're starting to actually start reviewing awards websites once again, and this is going to happen every single day, 8 p.m. Indian Standard Time or 2:30 p.m. GMT. Let me get rid of that echo and let's begin. So, in this video we have 6 different insane awards websites, and I don't even know how to start this, so let's just start because what else are we going to do? The first site that I want to talk about today, this is super duper fun, is Sound Ethics. I believe it's called in the domain soundethics.org, and the reason this is so fun is because you're going to see. I don't want to spoil it. Alright, so right off the bat, excellent hero section. Let's see what effects this one hides. Alright, the very first thing you notice is as soon as you start scrolling, the whole thing starts to rotate. There's a lot of motion, which is kind of great because you want there to be motion, especially when you're just new to a site. It just really helps group everything together, hook everything together. I'm loving the typography and I'm loving the font spacing because you have a lot of white space where you need white space, but you also don't have white space when you need to put text together in one single group. And the font pairing is absolutely amazing because the title is in a serif font, is in a sans serif font, and the description is in a sans serif font, but both are sort of thin enough to make the kerning work and just to make the fonts in themselves work really well. The next section, I'm not sure if you noticed this at all, is the micro interaction that happens when you scroll. So when you just scroll on this site for the first time, and I'm just noticing all of the things that look really amazing about this right off the bat, is the whole text starts to sort of go and be a little bit wider. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to see this, but it does happen, and that's quite nice in itself. Check it out. It just went and became wide on its own, which is legendary for that matter. And also we have this insane section on its own. I feel like this could make an excellent hero section as a standalone object, just having that one single top heading from labs to legends and then one single image, and then that's just good enough. So this is again every single section when in a site is good enough to be the hero. You've hit a gold mine in its absolute terms. Alright, the next section that I want to talk about is a split screen section, which does a 60/40 on the split of the page, and it just lets there be text on one side and lets there be images on one side. And I feel like we've seen this a bunch of times, but this specific UI is just really new in this technique, because now you not only have 50/50 basic text, basic image, the typography here is insane. Can I just say that the typography here is absolutely insane because you're using 2 different fonts. Also, you might notice most titles work from serif, and then you'll have a description that's basically sans serif, but here we're doing the opposite thing. So the title is sans serif, and then you have a description that's really small and really tiny and looks really good in that corner. The reason this crammed together text format works really well is because you have a lot of white space, which is also given, and you just are able to have a lot of breathing room generously over the top, over the bottom, left, right, and also at the top of the image. So I feel like that's the primary reason this entire UI just works as well as it does. This next section is also quite cool because it ends in this weird jagged line, which is insanely difficult to pull off when you're making a site responsive. So again, hats off, this is legendary, it's amazing. The next most awesome fact that I want to talk about is the color scheme, because when you have all of these images from different sources that aren't in one single photo shoot, like this image and this image aren't from the same background, it's really difficult to get one consistent color scheme going. But this site on its own has this light green, black and white color scheme, and it works even though you have images that are red from the background, even though you have images that are blue from the background, even though you have images that may not directly fit, which only happens when you have a certain level of consistency and beyond. So again, that's my breakdown on it. Third most interesting part in the whole wide world is, did you notice this button is sort of on a 45-degree angle? And the reason that's so fun is because you now get to get all of this attention focused on this one tiny little pattern and get it all to work, which is incredible. And then you also have that same exact angle when you're sort of angling these 3 sections, and then you have all of these 3 different cards which you can use wherever you want to use them. This next latest update section is absolutely incredible, and I would want to copy it because you have this simple title, latest updates, and then you make it sort of be wide all over the page, no problems with it whatsoever. So I feel like this is as close to perfect design as we're really going to get in 2025, which is why soundcloud.org, I believe that's the site's name. How am I forgetting these things now? Soundethics.org is like the perfect site if you're just looking for web design inspiration. The first most interesting that happens is, not only do you have this really wide title, now you also have a lot of white spacing, which just balances the whole thing out. It was so easy to get this site and have it be crammed. It was so easy to get this site and make it look off balance, but they've done a wonderful job of balancing out the right amount of white spacing to just get this entire thing to work, which is again incredible. And then you have these next two cards, which are also super duper in similarity to what we've already seen, because now you also have these titles that are trying to take up as much wide space as possible, which is sort of what's making this entire thing work, which is again incredible. The lesson we have to take from this site over here is, you can have a lot of crammed and big and bold headings and titles, and they will work perfectly if you just get the right white spacing to work, and if you just get the right amount of negative space, extra space to work. Alright, the next section that I want to talk about is this section, and again, this is the third time I'm saying this in this first site itself. It's so incredible for me to talk about this, because now you have 3 different versions of a header. So I feel like they've done 3 different headers in the same exact site, which is on the same exact landing page, which is what's super duper fun about this. The first one is the actual header that we've got, and then I feel like every single section that goes on from that point is doing a bunch of super duper cool white space things and super duper cool design things that just let it be the header, so you could have this be the header as well. Like, all of these are genuinely incredible headers, and then I feel like the third header that they've actually put in here is this one. The reason this is giving me a lot of header vibes is because you have all of these links which technically belong in the navigation bar that comes towards the header. So this is about solutions, news and contact, but I feel like they've done a wonderful job in sort of making it a header come footer, because you are also supposed to have a bunch of links in the footer, and this site has no official footer. This is the footer in itself, and then you have all of these different links working exactly the way they're supposed to. You also have a contact form which integrates seamlessly, and once again worth mentioning, all of these images, all of these forms, all of these colors work in a way where the photos aren't exactly of the same exact color theme, and it still works. The color theme here is constantly green, black and white, and then you have all of these images that are not green or black or white. I mean, there's a little bit of black but not a lot of green, which still works for some reason. So I feel like that is the amount of balance that you have to give a site. You have to let there be a little bit of white spacing in the images, which doesn't have to be white for that matter. It just has to be a lot of negative space, and then you have to give it a lot of padding and stuff on those lines just to get these color schemes to work. With that said, you also have this address, and once again the super duper cool text effect that was worth mentioning since the beginning. When you hover on any group of text, it just goes wide like that, which is incredible. So with that said, this is the first site that we're going to talk about for today. While that's happening, let's also check out the next pages on this exact site. So the next page that I want to talk about is the About section. Did you check out that transition? It just went a really PowerPointed, pixelated menu, which is quite nice for my head. Alright, this next section is once again keeping in line everything we've seen in the previous sections. This next section is called Our Story, which is obviously their story. How very innovative. But it again gives you a lot of white space, crams a lot of content where it needs to. So there's a lot of logos and little QR codes happening at the bottom, but you also have a lot of white space, which is what is letting this site work. Because from the get-go, the color scheme, and I'm going to say this for the repeated 10th time, from the get-go the color scheme wasn't incorporating all of the colors in the photo shoot. All of the colors in the photo shoot were either really blue or black or red, and then you have a color scheme that's just green, black, white, which is 2 completely different colors on the spectrum, and then it makes it work so seamlessly just because you give it the right kind of time to shine. When you let your images be present enough, when you let your images find the right amount of space, then you can just make this work on its own. And then when you scroll, you obviously have this really completed continuous theme. And I feel like one of the reasons I'm mentioning a continuous theme so much is because sometimes we'll make the perfect landing page in our own UI UX design works and then have that be the perfect thing and just let it be exactly where it stays and then not do anything else about it and then just watch a beautiful landing page. But that doesn't always work, simply because now you have this landing page but there is no consistency in terms of any other pages. And now in this next about page you have this making a lot of sense, because you have not only a landing page that was having a lot of really wide text, now you also have this other text, this title text, which is also really really wide and taking up a lot of space, and just it just works perfectly. So I feel like we have to give credit where it's due in this section. And the reason all of the cramming of the text and really really small spacing in the middle works so well is because they have been generous with the white space. Again, there's a lot of white space every single time, and I'm seeing this as a consistent pattern now. Every single time you have 60% of an area crammed together by a hard huge chunk of text, you also have 40% area at least with a lot of breathing room and white space, which is the bare minimum at this point. And also the 45-degree angle is not only maintained consistently in the button, but it's also at the edges of every single image, every single section changing, every single place where it needs to be. Super cool effect that I want to talk about in the middle is this kind of tiny little sticker, which is totally transparent but works as a really nice transition across two different sections, and it lets you truly see what's on the inside. And then when you scroll past it, you also see this image which is sticky, so it sort of retains position, doesn't really change it at all, but all of the text at the top is changing position. Again, one of the reasons the color schemes works so well, because now they've introduced a teal through your photo shoot, is because they are letting the colors in the photos actually shine through. So whenever there is white space, you're allowing photos to take up their own space, which is why they just integrate so well with the color schemes that we're working with. And again, we have a very consistent vibe with these cards. You will not see any of these cards not be consistent in the way they're made, and I feel like that's just sort of the incredible thing. This next core values banner is actually quite nice because it just sort of goes across the whole page and it just keeps on going in a marquee tag, which is HTML marquee, and it keeps on sort of going in one single direction, takes a little bit of text, lets it go in every single direction. And it's actually quite awesome when you're looking for special motion related effects, because whenever you have a motion related effect, things will really start to take shape. The next section that I want to talk about is this one. This is the blog section, I believe, or a section for letting there be a lot of text on its own, no images, no other vectors and contributions of graphics. And the reason this next section is so nice is because they're staying consistent. I get the urge for new designers to just come in the middle and try to make the newest thing they can, and yet I feel like the most difficult thing to do is have a good design and let there be consistency in it. The reason there is a lot of consistency and the reason this UI works in its own is because not only do you have a consistent crammed and white spaced theme going, but you're also making sure every single section always ensures it, which not only makes your job easier because you don't have to imagine new things every single minute second and make them work together, but also provides a lot of consistency that's just good for branding as a whole. And it's just really good to have it in this certain pattern. And then you also have these text groups which are taking a lot of white space, which I am absolutely in love with. One thing that I would want to mention over here is sometimes, and just sometimes, when you're working with serif text that's super duper thin, that's taking up a lot of really small area, and it's just letting there be a ton of white space, it genuinely becomes difficult to read. So every good thing that they did by allowing the titles to be serif and to be really thick and in one single clump gets taken away in a minute millisecond, just because you've let all of these small little tiny pieces of text be super duper small. Like, many people will have a difficulty reading it, and you'll just have to zoom in. Like, it's going to happen one of these days. And you're going to be losing a lot of really good clients, because now you're not giving them the absolute data that they need, especially because this text isn't even entirely black, it's a really dark shade of gray, which becomes a concern genuinely when you're dealing with such a small amount of text. And also many times when you're doing a lot of motion on a site, it becomes a smart idea to provide an option, a menu, to sort of reduce the motion, because sometimes there is motion induced sickness, and I think there is a certain amount of things that happen to people, and I'm going to make a video on this at some point, when you have a lot of animation going, and it's quite dizzying, honestly. It just is. The next section that I want to talk about is talk with us. And again, I do have my concerns to be critical over here. For a millisecond, this text is just way too small. It is. And I get the consistency, I get the white space, and I've already talked about it for such a long time. Great job on the overall site, and it's just doing great with the title text, but the description is really where they drop the ball, and it's exactly where they make you zoom in. So it's I feel like a little bit difficult to comprehend. And even if you do zoom in, hear me out for a second, it's just, this is quite boring as description text. Like, you don't get any highlights at all. So for a site claiming to be consistent and really good with their text, it just becomes boring really quickly. And then you have the exact same footer, which I love. Consistency is always incredible. The next section we're talking about, solutions. Did you notice that super duper cool slideshow transition also was in the last page? Quite incredible. This next section is solutions, and it is also on a similar pattern to how we had the last page. A lot of white space, which I am absolutely loving. We haven't seen the menu yet, so this is going to be fun. This section is the menu. Check it out. This is so fun. Can we just do that animation again? Let's just take a moment to acknowledge what cool animation went into making this happen. Check it out. Incredible. This is insane. And then you also have all of these options to just hover over and sort of make the text thicker, which I think is happening due to font weights. So when someone hovers over your text, they're sort of increasing the font weight with a CSS, which is great for our purpose. And then you're also having a very clear way of including your logo, which was also quite required on this section. And you also have a lot of white space, which is again incredible stuff. We were at solutions, so we're just going to go back and look at that. In terms of the solutions over here, again, a lot of white space, works really well, but I will still continue to have problems with this description text. It's just way too small and does not pay attention to the important words. So for example, fostering innovation might be something you want to draw attention to, but now you can't, because it's just super stuck in its ways, and it's really difficult to look at any data at all. Like, all you can look at on these sites is the title, which is problematic after a while, to say the least, because now you also want the user to pay attention to the actual content of the text that you're offering, and it's just not going to happen. Like, this is not the font family, this is not the styling you do when you want people to read the exact small amount of text. With that said, there's a lot of white space over here, a lot of breathing room, and it's really pretty, and it lets you maybe take the time out to sort of let it all sink in. And yet I will have problems with the description text simply because I need to. This next section is a little bit different than what we're used to. Usually you'll have a lot more on this exact side. With the consistency that I'm noticing, usually you'll have a lot less white space, but they've just let this white space run free, which is a little bit different for them. Again, I will continue to have problems with this description text because it's really difficult to read, and you only have attention going to a certain part of the header, beyond which it's just incredibly boring. The next section is AI writes, which is also sort of getting wider as you scroll, and it's quite good. It would work as a header, but it does get boring really quickly the moment you realize any important piece of text on the description section, no matter how the description may be, even if it's a list, is just really difficult to read. Like, it's just the way it is, which is the negative for me. Ethos, embrace AI, redefine music creation, all of these are important elements to what we're doing. Again, the thing that I have to mention over here is all of these different pages are very consistent. To sort of end my review on sound ethics today, all of these pages are very consistent. All of these pages have a certain way of going, and it's really expected. Nothing is sort of out of place. Everything works very well within. You have a color scheme that is sort of different from the photo shoot, and yet they make the colors work, yet they make everything work. I do have a problem with the contrast here a little bit, especially when the screen is loading and it's white, but that doesn't matter when your image is already loaded. So the contrast with this green and this white is, I'm sure, look at it, you can't even read this text. Like, I don't want to be critical, but you really cannot read this text. Like, you have to highlight this text. This is just white text on white background, and which leads me to the cons of this site, the negative points of this site. The image loaded. I correct myself. The image loaded, so now we don't have completely white text, but in the loading section, it's quite confusing to understand what is going on in the first place. Again, the negative point that I only have with this site is this is really difficult to read as a description chunk of text. It's just really complicated to read, and then you don't know where to look at, you don't know where to pay attention to, and it doesn't drive the point of the description home. So that has been my review of soundethics.org. Let's go to our next site, which is called martinlexinaire.france. So this is the site that we're looking at today. This is a front-end developer portfolio of Martin Lexirain, and let's just see what it offers. Right off the bat, you have this wonderful hover effect. So when I just stable my cursor, nothing happens. But when you make it move, it sort of does this really cool swimming effect. By the way, if you want to check this out, this is Martin-Lexirain.fr, and then you're going to just open this up. The first most important thing that blows my mind is the hover effect, but also this cool, simple, nice text just works really well. Again, the whole fabric color light highlight effect is always working for me, is just perfect for me. But also this huge text that takes up its own space is great. And then you also have this description text. Again, a little bit of the same problem that we saw last time. Great attention to the title, and I feel like we have a similar site here as well. Great attention to the title, great attention to the color scheme. The colors, the themes are all very tied together. As we progress in this site, you're going to see. But my primary concern is every single time, what are you going to do with the description text? Because it just gets really difficult to read beyond a certain point. I don't want to read this huge chunk of text anymore, because they might be important pieces of information, but you've just not put in the work to even highlight something, to make something look just a little bit more appealing. And also, where is your call to action, by the way? Because whenever you're designing a portfolio site, whenever you're designing a site that's action driven, you need to have a call to action point almost immediately. So there has to be a button, there has to be something that talks about reach out to me, say hello. And I would put ideally one line of description under over here, and then one single button right here on the bottom, and sort of make those two work. Because if you have a hero section that looks like this, is super duper intriguing, but does not allow a quick reach out to me button, I feel like it's just going to put a lot of people off, and it's just going to take a lot of business away, if that makes sense. There is, although, points to be given for the white space that we have over here. It just works really well. This image is blurry, which is apparently with theme of the site, and it has this a little bit of a text overlay. I have problems with the contrast, because this black and this blue are really not working together, really looking weird. But that aside, it actually looks quite nice. It does look quite nice. All of these images are either a little bit blurry or off the modern art side of things, not really clear as to what they are, which I think still works, which is fine. But image color contrast just really make things messier and make things really hard for me to read or understand. Alright, this next card is Analog Prod, and this is finally the moment. This is finally the image we've been waiting for. This image actually isn't really blurry. And here's my problem with blurry images. I'm going to get to it in just a second. This image isn't entirely blurry. It is quite nice to look at, and it isn't even really difficult to make out, and it's just really simple in terms of text. And the fact that there is gray in the background lets there be an ample amount of contrast with the text as well. So the reason I like the fact that this image is not blurry is because when you have the first image on your site be this weird and this blurry, it is difficult for me to even fathom what this actually is, and then people will start making all sorts of assumptions, and it's just not a lot of clarity right there in the beginning. This is just us starting the site, and not a lot of clarity from the get-go, and it'll register in everyone's subconscious brain. So when you have the top three images being really weird and blurry, people will derive their own conclusions. You don't know what this is. No one who's new to the site knows what Studio Tumult is, and then you have people making their own conclusions, which is really weird because you don't know what to do anymore. And so that's my primary concern with this site today. This next image actually again works really well. I do believe if you had let image number 4 be image number 1, image number 2 be image number 3 be image number 2, this would work really well. Check it out. We clicked on one of those images and we got a super duper cool smooth transition, which is exactly what we wanted. And then you also have the exact same fabric hover effect continuing, and then you also have the same exact image. Check it out. All of the different details that you needed: an interactive and playful website with a WebGL homepage, draggable slider, projects, Ajax, lazy loading, custom cursors, and a fun mouse over interaction. This is all really, really cool. Again, my problem with this site is quite similar to the one we had in the last site with sound ethics. Same exact problem I mentioned as always. There is no impact for the description for me. I have no reason to want to read the description. The whole heading lets me want to look at the site, and yet there is no image, no text highlight, nothing to pull me in towards the description, which is just getting off-putting really, really quickly, really, really easily, and it's making things mentally much, much harder. And then you also have, I believe, an image, a screenshot. If this is a video, it's not exactly apparent. If this is an image, we don't know what this is an image of. So I would want to sort of see what this happens. This says drag, but it's actually not draggable. You can't take it anywhere or do anything with it, which I don't even understand what's going on at this point, and I've tried to read and understand stuff that's happening over here. If this is really the site you claim for it to be, it would be nice to be able to select it, move it around, do something with it, or just to screen the actual screenshots, because this is really difficult to understand. Like, it is quite difficult to understand on its own. And then you have a lot of white space, which is great, but again, once again, a bunch of images that aren't really usable. And the reason it becomes a problem is because beyond a certain point, when you're designing websites, when you are a person that is involved in the creation of websites, it makes sense to have anything actual, workable, either an embed element or a link inside of your site. And when you only have images, it makes you look more like a presentation maker and less like someone who makes a website. And I'm sorry if this sounds cruel, but at some point, if you're making websites, there has to be an interactive element inside of your own portfolio that talks about your actual projects and not just a simple single sort of random hover that happens in the background. With that said, we have a bunch of cool awards and publications, which is incredible, because who doesn't want awards when you're designing sites? This is the next section, which I believe in my heart is far more impactful than anything we ever had. So most images on this site thus far have been really black and white, but now you're letting the Mirage Festival image be in color, which I feel like would have been much better if you would let all the colors from the background from the landing page be in color. So I'm just going to go back to the landing page, hopefully. And in the beginning, you obviously saw this be the landing page and every single image be either very, very blurry or very, very black and white. And now that I've seen the previous image that I've just had, I have enough mental clarity to know if you would just let the colors be in these images, maybe not blur them out so much or change the order in which they came. So if you wanted a blurry image, maybe put it at the 3rd or 4th number. I could have understood. I've seen, and we've just seen 5 seconds ago, the image that this was before this was taken into grayscale, and I love it far more than I love the grayscale version. So I guess you could have a little bit of images over here. And also the fact that if you're a modern designer, the whole black and white vibe just to make your color schemes work does not work really well, drives the aesthetic away, and it gets really, really confusing, and it doesn't let the fact that this is new technology sink in. So when you're a designer who's doing all of these super cool technologies, WebGL and all of the super cool magical things that do happen, I feel like it does become imperative beyond a point to let your images be in color, right? And let me know what you think. What do you guys rate this site out of 10? Because for me, I still believe this is at a 6 out of 10, because there are so many elements that I'd want to talk about, so many elements that I want to correct. Beyond the traditional title that they've done, beyond the wide title that they've done, there is nothing that's quite impressive about this, which is why I'm shocked that this is even an awards website. I don't want to sound critical. I am a positive person. And yet, the only 2 cool things that are happening here is this cursor is doing a super cool animation thing, so the purple stuff, and also you have this really, really nice title bar. Everything else is kind of a letdown. And I don't want to sound critical at all, because you have these pieces of text that are just super duper plain. Where are the images? I mean, for a person who knows how to have hover effects, it would have been nice to be able to hover over these images, see an actual image, even if it was just a screenshot of what the project looked like, have a little bit of vibe and aesthetic, have a little bit of color over here on these images. Because when you don't have color, when you don't have vibe, when you don't have life or energy, now I'm the drabbest person in the world. Now it's difficult for me to even fathom that you're the designer for me for 2025, that you're the developer for me for 2025, and it makes our jobs a whole lot difficult. It just does. So this site, Matin Lexinaire, for all of its pretty and all of its ugly, for me is going to be a 6 out of 10. And as I'm rating this, I'm looking at the footer, which is quite good, simply because it uses the huge header text format. So huge edit text format is my way of saying you have this title bar, you have this title which is a really wide, bold, big font, takes the amount of space it needs to, gets really comfortable in its own area, and it lets there be a lot of space for all of the other things to exist. And I think that's the only one of the only two reasons that I even want to stay here, which is this really wide big font which is right there in your face, and then number two is this super duper cool purple effect. Everything else I feel like you could get in like a slideshow or the plainest of websites in the whole world, and this is why I'm just really even doubting how this made it to awwwards.com in one sight of the day. Like it's definitely doubtful, and this is a definite 6 out of 10 for me. Let me know what you think, what you rate the site out of 10. With that said, let's just go back and look at the third site of the day, which is Retro Nova, timeless fashion. This is a Webflow site, so I am quite intrigued as to the things it can do while using no code. So let's just begin. Again, the very first thing that I noticed right off the bat is the super cool text animation that happens as soon as you start. You can activate the sound, but I don't want to do that right now. It lets you have a time which isn't even the right time for right now, so I don't know what that means. This is very code based, because you have this let journey begin equal to true. Is this code based or is this a video game? I'm still not sure. Like, I'm looking at these sites with you guys for the first time, so I'm a little bit confused over there. But you also have this next section, which is having a super duper cool element go on, sort of rotate around, and it just works really well with the page. One of the reasons this works super duper well is because you have a lot of white space, a pattern in the background. Again, for the third time in this day, what are the coincidences, what are the chances that you have the exact same technique for title fonts used once again, where you have this huge chunk of text that is really bold and really big and in your face, and it's in one single corner, and it lets there be a lot of white space. Again, the reason this is better than the last site we saw is because there is a little bit of an image, there is a little bit of a motion going on here, which makes things really interesting. This is sort of going back and forth, which makes me not know what's going on. You can actually scroll these guys and see a little bit of the text, which I'm just now finding. Is this site really this small? I'm a little bit confused. Is this site really this small? Again, I love the nostalgia. I love the effect that you have over here from the old timey video games, this framed weird vector shape effect, and yet it's quite difficult to know that this is really scrollable. It's quite difficult to understand what this site does. I'm pretty sure this is a video game website at this point, but over and over, this is a good enough site. Like, this could be a solid 7 out of 10. Let me know what you think about this one. Type site number 3 down in the comments, what number rating you think this site deserves. For me, the reason this isn't a 10 out of 10 site is because maybe I expected to see more. When you have an aesthetic sense of UI UX design as brilliant as this, you kind of want to see this extend beyond 2 sections, and you kind of want to see more. And I feel like it's really difficult. If there is more to the site, it's really difficult for any new person to know where it is, and I'm rating this from that point of view as well. So it's really difficult for me to know if there are any extra pages, what this site actually does. And also just bear with me for a second, and I'm trying to justify the number 7 in my head as well, so just bear with me for a second. Another reason why I think this deserves a 7 out of 10 is because the content is really confusing. Retro aesthetics meet contemporary animation, creating a captivating fusion of old world charm and modern sophistication. I'm saying this as someone who has like read a lot of English and knows the meaning of just about every single one of these words. It's still confusing. No one knows what the site does. From a simple branding point of view, I don't know why you would put all of these different texts, weird words into your description, not have it be highlighted, underlined, or easy to understand, and then expect a full rating. Like, this is really complicated to read, because I have still read the description twice and I don't know what it really does. I'm assuming this is a video game site, but it could be something else entirely, and you wouldn't be able to call it the user's blame, because so many complicated buzzwords, nothing can be understood. This should have been much simpler as a journey. So I feel like on the user experience front, not the user interface front, I feel like 3 points is very justifiable to take on this section. So with that said, this is a Webflow site. I get that this is made from an aesthetic point of view, and it's quite impressive that Webflow lets you do all of these super cool elements, and yet 7 out of 10 for me. Let me know what you think in the bottom of this video in the comment section. next site is my favorite site of the day. This is dogeelonmars.com, and this is going to be super duper fun because it has something to do with Elon Musk. We can all tell has something to do with the Doge movement, and let's just see what this does. Again, as soon as we start, quite a goofy landing page. This is the kind of landing page I love, and I want you guys to rate this with me as well. I want you guys to rate this site out of 10 in the live chat with me as well. This is such a fun site because it just really has a lot of color, has a lot of motion, does not follow your general rules of web design, and yet it has made it to awwwards.com simply because it's goofy and it's fun, and it has a certain type of comedic life that most inanimate objects don't, which is so precious to me, so precious to me. Again, so many videos, so many animations. I am Dogelon. Again, I want to see what this site is about because I am still not sure, and I'm just looking at these with you guys for the first time. I am Dogelon Mars. Miss Doge going to the moon. Join us on the mission to Mars. Let's just join them on the mission, see what's happening. Wow, what the hell happened? Is this what Mars looks like? I have no idea at this point. I'm pretty sure this is something to do with NFTs in Ethereum, which I have no contribution in whatsoever. Coming soon, AI-powered metaverse and Rufus L2. Dogelon Mars is creating a metaverse set on Mars by integrating AI to create an immersive and interactive virtual experience. Alright, complicated words. A lot of reason. Alright. And then when you scroll down, you have this hero turn into one of the elements of this entire comic book, which is quite nice to me. I think this is an NFT site until now. I could be wrong. I think this could be an NFT site. Check it out. The whole text had such a cool pop-off effect, which was super duper fun. And then you have the whole description over here. This is what I'm talking about. Even though this description doesn't do a lot of work to highlight the text, it is still better than all of the 3 different sophisticated cool sites that we saw, simply because it has at least a single emoji, which by the way are a part of Unicode exactly like text is, so why would you shy away from using emojis? This lets there be a lot of space. The text is actually big enough for you to read without having to zoom in, has a lot of comic vibes, has a lot of images, has a lot of animation, which is generally more encouraging than anything else. This is the first site that I've even wanted to read, as opposed to the other 3, which were all having really small description text or complicated description text, which made life so much more difficult. Follow the story of Dogelon Mars as he explores the greatest mysteries of the universe and seeks to return to the planet he once called home with the help of friends he's made during his intergalactic travels. So is this a dog, a Shiba Inu that is basically an alien? Is this a Shiba Inu from Mars? I still don't know, but I am willing to find out. Again, a fun interaction for us to have. This next section is talking about governance. Decide the fate of universe with your fellow Martians. Vote using $Elon. So I think you can buy these elements through Ethereum or through Elon. I am not sure what this does. A little bit of description would have been easier, because from people who are outside of the whole NFT chain of things, it's quite difficult to understand. Like it's still not very clear to me. I am pretty sure this is something to do with NFTs in Ethereum and the whole blockchain technology, but I'm really not sure what it is until now, simply because there is not a lot of explanation which you would expect from the landing page of a site of this pattern. Like, you have Roboto NFTs which have a much better landing page site than this, and it is a much easier journey understanding what that is as compared to this. Like, this is fun. It's quite understandable from a user interface and user experience point of view, but the copywriting is sort of lacking over here. Like, you don't have a lot of easy to read, easy to understand text going on, even though it could have been integrated here seamlessly, even though it could have worked perfectly. You have all of these different elements, and then you also have an apparel and a brand kit, which I don't know why I'm clicking on these links, because all of these are just going to separate sites and just forcing you to buy something. The partners here are insane, and you also have these same exact sort of lines going in a 45-degree angle. The reason I want to sort of stop you right here is because these are the same exact lines, and they're 2 different lines. Check it out, they're exactly the same. CoinGecko, CoinGap Market, Solana, Hacken, Gemini, OKX, Huobi. Etherscan. Both of these are the exact same lines, and they're so similar. They've just sort of repeated themselves, which seems like a visual error to me. It would have been much better to have one of these lines and make them much bigger, if that's even a thing that you can do. This next section is universe explore the universe. It's actually quite difficult to understand because there is no separation whatsoever. Explore the greatest mysteries of the universe, I believe, but it's just increasing text, and it just integrates text, which is, there is like no starting and ending point to this. Quite confusing, honestly. Then you have a video playing, and then you have a bunch of these elements going over here. Stake your Elon tokens to land on Mars, build an arm while playing the online multiplayer mission with friends. Is this a game site? Or I thought this was an NFT site. Is this really even a game site? I cannot, for the life of me. AI creator, what is going on here? Dogelon Media, your tool to expand Dogelon's universe. I at this point really don't know, as a beginner in this brand, what this whole Dogelon mission is, what you're supposed to do with it. Is this an NFT brand? Is this an apparel brand? Is this both? Quite difficult to understand, which is my only negative concern with this entire site. I am Dogelon Mars. I don't doubt that. I can guarantee that your legal name is Dogelon Mars, but I'm still not understanding what's going on over here. Footer, by the way, quite incredible. Give us a follow, check it out. This is so fun. You can hover over one of these elements and it sort of jumps up. Super duper cool elements, like really a lot of motion happening, cool stickers in the background. This is definitely something I would integrate in a comic like site. The whole UI interface is a little bit different, a little bit funny, but it's very usable. Site by Griffin, incredible. It's really fun to use, and yet the content is quite difficult to understand. Copywriting becomes a little bit of a concern when you don't know what's going to do what over here. Overall, love the aesthetic, but what this site does is difficult for me to understand. I want to give this an 8 out of 10 simply because it's quite new and it's quite different, and you don't get to see this site, this comic aspect in web designs anymore, or at all, simply because this would be a fun aesthetic to have on other sites as well, and yet this is like the first site I'm officially seeing in this comic-y format. So I'm just in love with the way it looks. It just is that simple. The content is definitely where the site needs to work a little bit, because you don't still know what's going on, which is what makes me think 2 points should go off the plate, but a great site nonetheless. In fact, one of the prettiest we've seen thus far. The reason for that, for me saying this, is simply because you have this text which is actually readable in the description, as opposed to a site like Sound Ethics where you can't even read this thing. Like, I get that this looks super sophisticated, and I get that this would look incredible, especially from a place like Squarespace, but you don't really know what to read, how to read, where to read, which is what's throwing my whole game off here. Like that's the reason I would always want this site to be better than soundethics.org. Alright. The next site that we're talking about is Zolviz.xyz. At Zolviz, we believe everyone deserves to experience joy of something. Let's click on the floating letters to start. So I'm just going to do that. This is a nice effect. You can actually have a lot of motion and have a lot of interaction from the user from the get-go if you would just let this effect be. Click on all of these and get them to start. Check it out. This actually looks quite nice. I am in love with the way it looks. Why can I not click on this guy? Alright, so right off the bat, I have some concerns. As soon as we started, wow, does this site have music? Shut up, site. We can't have music on live streams. Sorry, you guys. Check it out at zolviz.xyz if you're interested in the music. Not the coolest thing in the whole world, but not the worst thing either. The reason I'm a little bit disappointed as soon as the site began is there was a nice huge piece of text that I wanted to read, but the same exact problem that happened with sites in the beginning was also happening with Zolviz. You couldn't really read it, and as soon as you sort of interacted with the text as it asked you to, that became a problem as well. When the letters were floating, it was hard to read, but when the letters were not floating, it was hard to read. Not sure it makes any sense this way, but it's just quite weird in my head. With that said, loving the font slider. The whole font size issue is a little bit difficult to visualize. Like, you have to physically zoom in to even be able to think about these microscopic sizes. Design, visualize, enjoy. I would have loved if the font size was 45 as opposed to 4. So this is a little bit of a issue for me. But overall, the whole huge in your face text and typography is really the part that gets my heart. The whole O with the dot in the middle, it's just working for me. Like, this whole aesthetic, super duper great. Modern site, all of the points given. And when you scroll, this slider is what actually starts scrolling. I think this is it for the landing page, but you can click on any one of these to be able to see what's going on. The whole site turns into a dark theme, by the way. And then you have this huge piece of text which you can actually sort of read slowly or quickly. Check it out. Again, my problem with this text is always no area for description to be really difficult, for the description to be even readable. And also you don't have the clear option to switch between dark and light mode aesthetics. Like, it just sort of stays one single way. But then you have a lot of white space. What is the point of having a lot of white space if you can't even read the text? I can guarantee if I wanted to read this text, I would have to zoom this in like 100 times, just the way I'm doing it. And even then, this would be like the most boring chunk of text in the whole wide world, which is why this site is such a disappointment. The only element that I love about this site, wow, did something happen? I don't think anything did happen. Like, nothing happened. This is so weird. The only reason I would even give the site a rating of 6 out of 10 is because I love the aesthetic of the landing page. I love the fact that you were able to drag all of these individual elements and just place them on the page. That was incredible. I love the whole interactive motion going on. But other than that, there are a couple of lacking points, including description text being too small. In the beginning, there was a little bit of a description text which we couldn't read, but then when we did drag the text to be able to read it, the text sort of went away. There is no option to switch between dark and light mode, because now you're sort of integrating it into a theme. And also, the whole description text everywhere it goes, including the tagline, is super duper small. Like, how am I supposed to read this without zooming it in 100 times? I can't read it. So that's where I think the major problem is for me. And also because if you are a designer who can design something as great as this, why would you make the site super duper small? The whole site is really small. You have a landing page where you drag the text elements and then it sort of switches around, and then all you're left with, by the way, is this one single image slider, which is too less for me. At Zolziv, I'm trying to read the text that we couldn't, so I'm just trying to do this now. At Zolziv, we believe that everyone deserves to experience the joy of space they've designed. Our mission is to inspire and empower you by providing not only cutting-edge 3D visualizations, but also created selections of the finest products and guidance to make your vision a reality, from crafting your dream kitchen to blah 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 blah. Alright, so I read that thing, and here's what I found out. Interior design brand with a little bit of a 3D modeling side to them. I can guarantee to everyone watching, if you haven't seen or read this site in a lot of detail before, this is in no way appearing to be an interior design brand. Like interior design, 3D for visualizations, none of that is visible. All the only thing that you can actually concentrate on is the fact that the name is Zolziv and the fact that it has this really cool animation. Don't get me wrong, I live for UI UX design, and yet this whole site does not scream interior design at all. It just looks like a bunch of cool stock photos, because all the description text, including the beginning one, is difficult to understand. The text that went away as soon as we clicked on Zolziv, the description text, was supposed to be here the entire time, because that was the only indicator this was an interior design site. Everything else looked like stock photography. And maybe they're really good because it looks so cool and polished, but also maybe they're bad on the site front, because you really can't tell if this is an interior design site for someone looking for those services. I would not understand that this is the site for me. Like, it's a lot of fashion and not a lot of sense, if that makes sense. Like, lot of beauty, no brains at all. Again, that's my opinion. Not the most positive opinion I've had for any site, for sites today. A lot of white space, and yet they're underutilizing it. No one knows what this space is doing. I am quite mad with Zolziv, because for all of the good UI potential that they had, blew it completely on the UX front. So 6 out of 10, but I'm feeling generous with that number. Like, honestly, it would be a 4 out of 10 for me, but I'm just not. Why are we seeing these random lines? Is this a glitch? Is this a glitch? Because it doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Can someone explain to me what's going on? Because I feel like this is still a 4 out of 10 site for me, but I'm still giving it 6 out of 10 because I'm a sucker for the whole drag and drop, create your own name thing. But that's from a UI design front. From a person who's looking for interior design and 3D and those sort of things, description and user experience is really off. So you wouldn't even get a 4. Like, I'm trying to be as positive as I can, and yet this is a lot of form over function and a lot of beauty over brains, which is not a good thing for a site. It's just not. Next site that we're talking about is the last site of the day. This is the site of porterrobinson.com, and this is going to be the most fun site we've ever seen, simply because it's pink. I'm trying to be excited. Let's see what happens. Are you guys excited? Let me know for this one. And can you please rate this site out of 10, you guys? Because come on, silent watchers, no fun. Active performers, super duper fun. Let's zoom into it. Alright, this is the first site. This is the site of a musician. How fun is that? I have never seen a musician site so fun, and yet we're going to get started. It's more of a video game sort of thing. So, you had an interesting loading animation, then you had all of these three options: store, tour, album, but you can press to begin. Check it out. This is so awesome. Album, store, tour, these are the three elements of the site. I love the fact that you've changed the navigation from being in a navigation bar at the top. You've actually taken all of those elements and you've basically let them be in buildings. Let's go to store. It's a very simple site, quite a dumb site. This is your average, basic, most e-commerce site you'd ever have, and yet simply because there's a landing page that's so pretty, I will always discount the fact that the font is basically Arial and everything is super duper small. Like, I understand that this is a very small amount of text, very basic amount of stuff, and yet I will happily discount it simply because this landing page is made in 3D and WebGL and all of the cool elements. Like, this style itself, even though it's not perfect, is good enough for me to say 9 out of 10. Because of everything we've seen today, because of the way web design is, when you let your landing page be this happy in the beginning, in a world where everything else, all of the sites that we've seen are style but difficult to understand, I love the fact that they've done a lot of fun stuff. I love the kitty in the background, I love the city in the background, I love the smile in the background, and I love the whole aesthetic, you guys. Not the most complicated site, but also the use case wasn't too complicated either. Like, you have a musician who has an album, a store, and a tour, the most quintessential things of the whole wide world. You can choose a date. This is embedded by Lelo, and you can just choose whatever tickets you want, which is quite nice. Album, I do want to see who this artist is, by the way. I've never seen their music before. Smile, which is their album, is out now. Check it out. This is so fun. Like, they've integrated a store from the outside, they've integrated this tour element from outside, and they've integrated this album element from outside. This is also an embed from Blinkfire, and yet it's just working for me simply because of the 3D embed that they've done. And on the menu bar, instead of all of the 3D embeds, you basically have this really nice fiber. Check it out. This is so good to work with. Like, you should try this out. This is a weird sort of thing. I have no idea what this does, but it's like a nice, cool effect to work with. What's even going on in this world? This is so difficult, you guys. Finish album. Did we finish the album? Check it out. Something is happening. 3D magic. Wow. Commotion. What the hell is going on? Can someone explain what the hell I just did? Did I break the site? Did everyone just break the site? Highly encourage you to check this guy out, you guys. You can find all of these links in the description. What the hell is going on? I feel like a weird gamer in this universe. What's going on? I can't understand any of this, and yet I love it. This is so fun, and yet I would want to see more mainstream artists like do stuff like this on their sites. That would just make life so much more fun. How weird is this? How difficult is this to work with? Check it out. You can move these elements around. Again, this is all 3D stuff. Couldn't have been easy to make. Spline, WebGL, all of those cool technologies have definitely gone into making a thing like this. I love the way this site is. Not a lot is left by the end. You can sort of redo this. Oh, this is a break room. You can go over here through the navigation bar and break everything in this room, which is super duper fun as a stress reliever hobby. 9 out of 10 as a site for me, simply because it's easy enough to understand for everybody. And even though you're doing 3 different integrations from outside, no cool typography here. Like, I would have been mad at the fonts over here simply because this is Arial in the beginning, but I'm just going to give that such a huge discount today simply because this whole site is a whole blast. And another one, you have the room you can break, and the landing page, and the beginning animation, which was so fun. And it's just so, check it out, there is a face floating around of the artist. So dumb, yet I am in love. Like, this is the perfect site to end a really nice stream, a really nice day. Thank you so much for everyone who joined me live. You have to check out this site simply because of how wonderful this looks. Check it out. There's stuff at the top, there's stuff at the bottom. You can move stuff around to see what's going on where. I still can't read this stuff. 3D gives me the disease, and yet it's so addictive I can't stop. Porter Robinson is exactly what this says. This feels like being in the center of the earth, so round, so weird. I will see you in the next one. I will be live tomorrow again, 8 p.m. Indian Standard Time or 2:30 p.m. GMT, wherever you are in the world. Join me live. We'll have a lot of fun. Look at sites, take inspiration, and as always, rate sites that we probably should be learning from. I'll see you again tomorrow. Goodbye.